And so now we are visiting Colonel Chris Wyatt on the Hustler's Corner now. Let's quickly jump into the discussion and see how that went. Let's go.
It is No Time Monday. Zaid's Kitchen is officially open.
I'm coming.
Do get your orders. Congratulations to everyone that has been receiving great service from our platform. We appreciate you guys. We cook the food right here at the kitchen. Order a makoporosh platter for 6, a makoporosh platter for 8, a makoporosh platter for 10 was trending the other day, and people saying we're expensive. Why would you have a platter for 1,200 rand? That's for 10 people, guys. You even get some free more fire, like an entire 6-pack. So if you divide that by 10 people, that's still almost 100 rands per person. So it's not that expensive, please. It's
just $70, bro.
This is $70. This is the most I will speak. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. I'll give Nota the honors of doing the introduction. Appreciate you.
No, thank you. We are here with Colonel, the way we say it in South Africa, but it's Colonel Chris Wyatt. He's a retired colonel from the U.S. Navy or U.S.
Oh no, the Navy be captain. It's from the Army.
From the Army,
the oldest service in the United States.
Oh, okay. And thank you for joining us here today, and thank you for showing a lot of the world that is watching your content, South Africa, and giving them perspective on how we live. How has your most recent trip been so far?
Well, thank you, Nota. I was surprised we were going to do this with you. So it should be interesting. Yeah. I think you became a subscriber to my channel recently. Is that true?
Yeah. No, from the beginning.
From the beginning, okay.
From when I first saw it, yeah.
I surprised you. I didn't know that you know him.
Yeah.
But I wanted this episode to happen with him.
No, it's fine.
I didn't tell you about it.
It's fine. It's and I don't feel sandbagged, but I mean, Nota knows I've been critical of some of his comments, so it should be an interesting conversation today. And we'll probably just talk about South Africa, which would be great. No, the trip so far, Nota, it's been epic. It's been unreal. So I've been doing these trips since I left the Army in October 2019. I retired, and I started a consultancy to try to get U.S. businesses to invest in Africa. And then the COVID scam came along, and I couldn't travel to Africa. So. So what am I going to do? So I'm kind of like Inspector Gadget. I adopt technology whenever it comes out. So I was one of the early people on YouTube, even though I was an intelligence officer serving the military and I really couldn't post videos of myself online.
Yeah.
So I had a couple videos from waterfalls in Iceland on a trip that I took there years ago.
Oh, nice.
So that's all was there.
Around the glaciers?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah. So after 15 years on YouTube, I had 2 subscribers and I had 4,300 views. In other words, I really didn't use it much. So then when I couldn't travel because of COVID, I said, well, how can I let people find out about my consultancy? So they know that I know about Africa and I understand Africa because that's what I'm selling. So I started making videos about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, counterterrorism, the Sahel, the Southern African Customs Union, SADC, all this different stuff, and South Africa. And I have a lot of followers at that time, on LinkedIn, about 10,000. And so I went on LinkedIn, put it on there. And then a few people came over and subscribed. And I have an affinity for South Africans in general, but 3 groups in particular. So I like to promote those who speak Afrikaans, including Afrikaners and colored South Africans, but also the Tswana South Africans, because Botswana, I used to live in Botswana. Not really in Botswana, I'm Botswana, but still, so I like to promote that as well. And then the Sotho, because they're really cousins. So when I go to Maseru, I can say, Tsahili Jang, and they understand me, and I get it. Yeah,
okay.
I get it. But then they start talking other stuff, and it's a little too different from Tswana, so I get lost.
Okay.
But so I promote those cultures in South Africa. Anyway, so I wound up listening to some programs.
So this is Colonel Chris Wyatt. I've seen up to kind of run about this part. He's explaining himself as a journalist. When I started making videos about him, asking who he is, there's somebody who comes in and kind of explains on his behalf. I don't know if that's his commenting account where he goes and he presents himself in a particular way so that he himself is not presenting himself. Like he's known already as this particular thing. And there are those who know him. So if you don't know him, there's somebody else other than him educating you on who he is. So you should know by now. He and that account introduced him as a journalist. And he himself says that he was covering some things before COVID-19. I heard a piece of that in the interview with Sama Sambit. He explains himself like this. I don't know, man. Do CIA men don't have cover when they go undercover? Say, this is who I am. Haven't we just seen this in the movies? Just spend the first 3 years being on YouTube, acting like a journalist, and then we know the agenda has started, but after 3 years, once that cover is established, you will now start pushing the agenda you need to push. I mean, the world is currently going through a very serious war there between Israel and Hamas and the people of Gaza, Palestinians, and now Israel is bombing Iran and Iran is bombing back. The world is taking sides. People are choosing where they go. And I think that the Afrikaner refugee program, in one way, is an attempt to shame the South African government for taking Israel to the ICJ. And so Trump, who is pretty much a partner to Israel, the United States, being ran by Israel, is pretty much standing up for the Afrikaners to say, if you're going to say there's a genocide, you're going to say our friend has a genocide, we're going to say you have a white genocide. We're going to press on that. Plus, there had been people internally who were saying that that's what's happening from 2018 over there. Farm murders, genocide of whites. And so currently, I think there's that point to point the finger back in South Africa, but also for some group of white people to find some sympathy and allegiance in their hearts towards Israel. I think there are people whose minds are being campaigned to, ally and stand behind Israel very much. And maybe while the US is doing this and the Afrikaners are appreciating Trump so much, it's time to now, have white Afrikaners who believe themselves to be Christian and they are not Christian. That is Christian white nationalism. It's the same stuff in the USA from the gun lovers, etc. It seems like there's that thing where Americans like Colonel Chris Wyatt and Trump saw that, there's people who kind of exactly like us out in South Africa. They are white, hold to these conservative values. If we're all right-wing, white, family-loving, gun-loving, lovers of the soil and producing, why don't we just all stand together one time and just stand behind Israel together? I mean, if y'all love rugby over there, Colonel Chris Wyatt will pretty much just start wearing some Springbok stuff to make sure that the white people see that in him. And when they see that in him and they see him and Trump favoring the Afrikaners and they see Trump saying Israel, the white people will turn their necks and go Israel as well. So I think there's layers underneath layers. There's a cover, there's the first apparent thing, remove that, and there's the truth. Or maybe there's another layer and another layer, and then in the inner sanctum, there's the truth. But these things don't have to be so complex, If you want to control a population, you have to go for a simple strategy. If you make it complex, you risk your message not being gotten. So you need to be straightforward. So, Colonel Chris, is he straightforward who he is? Does he have a cover? Does he have several covers? And is Israel his agenda as well, with the Aikumalos and the Samasambits? There does seem to be an Israel thing over there. And it seems well-timed. I don't believe that Colonel Chris Wyatt would be involved in these things coincidentally because of Nobuntu Mkhize. I think he might have said that, or is still going to say, he picked up on South Africans' things during the Nobuntu Mkhize thing. And so being a journalist, speaking on things, having retired, he hopped on to this story. And now, fresh off on-ramping via Nobuntu Mkhize, there's now an Israel psyops lobbying of Afrikaners while Israel is doing what they are doing. So create more conflict between the Afrikaners who, because of their Judeo-Christian allegiance, and there's no such thing, really. There's only Christ. If you're Judeo-Christian by tradition, swearing by the Bible, you're just not Christian. So they're like, okay, there's this little Christianity that we can find. And with Christianity, there's this Judeo allegiance as well. And these Judeo-Christian white people hate their current government. Let's make them love us then, as the Israelis, the Jews. And let's have a split in South Africa where their government and those who took Israel to the ICJ, let's have them stand on that side with Muslims. And then let's have this side of the gap those who stand with Israel. That's really the polarity of the world currently. That's how it is. That's the big left and the right in the world.
And program I'm familiar with, Ronaldo Plus program.
Yeah.
5 years ago. I was out exercising, so I'd stay fit. Once I got out of the army, you got to make an effort. So I'd walk in the morning for an hour and a half, and again in the afternoon for another hour. And I'm walking through the orchards in central Pennsylvania, and I'm listening to these people call in complaining about South Africa and Ronaldo's program. He would give them 2 minutes. It was during lockdown. So I called in because I was angry at them. Like, these people they're South Africans. They don't even know their own history. So I called in, and Ronaldo's giving you 2 minutes per person. We talked for 40 minutes.
Wow.
People in the chat like, who's this Oak man? Where do we find him? Does he have a channel? Where do we find him? And then I didn't know what to say because he asked me for my channel. I said, well, type in Chris Wyatt Africa. And that started. And then my channel grew to about 23,000 in about 5 months. It was really exploding. And then I had the temerity to report accurately what happened in our election. No, not Dominion switching votes or, But the state of Pennsylvania had passed an election law 10 months prior. And because it was inconvenient, they chose to avoid the law. Well, that's not acceptable. So I reported accurately, and YouTube came after me because there was a censorship regime at the time. And they attacked one video after another illegitimately. And after 3 months, they took my channel away. So I started a new channel, and that channel grew slowly. And after 3 years and 8 months, it was at 20,000.
Wow.
But then...
Who has seen this channel? Who has seen it? Who has seen it? Did it ever exist? Is this a cover? Colonel Chris Wyatt, you telling us the truth? You telling us the truth?
Nobs and Kesey went off on a Sapphire flight. Because
there comes the Nobuntu Mkhize. He's about to tell us how he now makes an on-ramp onto South Africa and becomes who he is currently. Because I've seen his account grow in the speed. In February, when I joined YouTube, I didn't join YouTube. I started doing political commentary. When I met him, I think his account was doing 50,000. In the 2 months since I did that and took a break, he's doubled that amount. So he will have an account that is 1 million in about a year and a half from now. Unless something happens, I don't know. Trump loses the election. Israel really disgusts the world, and there's a turning away, and the US as well cuts itself off. I mean, if they go into this war with Iran and people in the US die, people in Israel die, people in Iran die, people in Gaza have been dying, what is it all going to be for? What is it all going to be for? What is it all going to be for? How will people feel about that? Everybody dying? Everybody? What about America first? Bannon and people like that will be calling, the way they say, kick out Elon Musk. He's a South African running some issues here. We really might see people saying, yo, get Israel away from us. Did the Saudis just buy a jet for the USA for Trump? People who are going to say America first are going to be caught in two places because times are changing. That slogan, America first, and now you're putting Israel first and you're putting American citizens to the sword, having them die in battle, and there's protests on the street. America is more divided. Foreigners are being kicked out, and those people are currently holding jobs employed by Americans who are trying to squeeze, what they can, what profit they can out of the business, grow their margins a bit by employing cheap labor. The hotels, the farms, they're gonna go out of business if they have to employ Americans. Immigration and the hiring of the poorer people outside of the fence is a thing that will happen until the end of time. It's slavery. That's what it was in the time before industrialization. The poor have always found their labor being procured, but today we pursue the employer and we hand ourselves over and we say, can I work your machine? I will come back tomorrow. You don't have to chain me. Just write me a contract. I agree to be yours. You know what I'm saying? So the world runs that way, and the US runs that way very much. So doing away with the foreigners there, hurting American jobs, riots on the street, families being split, senators being pinned to the ground, arrested for asking questions, Harvard being attacked, academia turning against the administration, US soldiers dying, and the US debt growing, the tariff war increasing the price of food and services in the United States, the dollar going shorter and shorter distance, the world going towards the others, going towards a BRICS currency. Bro, this Israel war with Iran is coming at a very bad time for Americans. And I don't know what is going to happen with Colonel Chris Wyatt and the Nazis, Jewish Nazis, who are busy pumping this up, allowing this to be life. Nazism is going to fall again. It has to rise, and what goes up has to fall. And so will Colonel Chris Wyatt and his account and the Amerikaner Jews, yes, they are Amerikaner Jews now, will they together be rallying for the war of the world and becoming more popular? Or is there a fall in the future for such? Let's keep listening.
There was a censorship regime at the time, and they attacked one video after another illegitimately, and after 3 months, they took my channel away. So I started a new channel, and that channel grew slowly, and after 3 years and 8 months, it was at 20,000.
Wow.
But then Knobs and Kesey went off on a SAF Air flight. And
yes, Knobs, yes.
Knobs,
I actually know her.
SABC, right?
Yeah, I actually know her.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
what
not from the
happened.
SABC.
I don't know what happened. She said she wasn't drinking. Yeah, she said she wasn't drinking, but I suspect she had a little bit on the flight. Anyway, I'm not going to get into this, but she did that on the flight, and I had stopped making prepared videos because it takes a lot of work, to prepare a video, do the analysis, record and edit it. So I kind of stopped making those because I wasn't getting many views out of my 20,000 subscribers. But when Knobs did that, I was kind of angry about it, and I was waiting to see if the Human Rights Commission did something about it. So I made a video and I had 50,000 views. I'm like, oh, people are listening. So I made another one, different angle, and suddenly people started watching my prepared videos. So I put more effort into it. So I didn't gain subscribers initially, still stuck at 20,000, but the viewership picked back up. And then I said, Trump's coming in office and people are interested in this. So I should be making more videos analyzing Trump and what's going to happen. And then it started taking off mid-January, seriously. And then Trump's executive order for the refugee program. And it's just, I'm at 80,000 last night. I hit 80,000.
Wow. So, congratulations.
You're almost on 100K.
Yeah, and he's 103,000 right now. He's at 103,000. He's growing. And now he's recruiting people on behalf of Israel. Right after this video, as we end, we will watch one more video about how Israel is paying influencers across the world. And you'll understand what I'm saying when I say there's a connection with the Amerikaners. The Afrikaners in South Africa, they are being worked towards nationalism, Nazism. And Afrikaners do come from a Nazi background. The Nationalist Party, the Nazi Party of South Africa. So are they being called back to their origins by Jewish Nazism now?
And what's the name of the platform for the people to subscribe?
Oh, you just go at Colonel Chris Wyatt, and you can find it on YouTube just like that. But the trip, so back to answer your question, Notice. Sorry, not to monopolize all the time, but I am the guest, so I can tell my story.
No,
please. All right.
Got all the time in the world, yeah?
So the trip so far has been unbelievable. The reason for telling you all that is that this is my 5th trip to South Africa in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
So I come about every 6 months, and I try to engage all kinds of folks. I engage with colored folks, with Khoi, San, black folks, white folks, Afrikaners, English, Tswana, Zulu, Xhosa, all over the country as best I can. And I try to tell people stories. I film documentaries, and I try to promote South Africa, but I don't hide from the very real problems this country has, like the one almost meter deep pothole in Santon I drove through yesterday. Oh, that was ugly. Well, the tire didn't blow, thank goodness. That's happened to me before. I by the way, when I came in 2022, I was in Northwest, and I was on a secondary road going to the Cradle of Humankind. Yeah. And I'm driving on the road, and there's 2 massive potholes. And there's a car coming, so I can't swerve. It's 80, but I'm only going 50. And I didn't see them because there was a shadow, and I went through it. 2 tires blown just like that.
Oh, I've had the same thing happen to me.
So I pull over, and there's a tuck shop. So I push the car or roll it, about 100 meters, get to the tuck shop, and I open the boot, and there's no handle for the jack, and there's no lug wrench for the nuts. Oh yeah, I saw you that. So I'm like screwed, right? Anyway, so I walk in, and the Indian, the shop is owned by an Indian. I didn't even know there were Indians in the Northwest, but I was wrong. I've been coming to South Africa for 30 years. I didn't know there were Indians in the Northwest, especially in Rustenburg. Anyway, so he gave me some tools to work with, and then these Afrikaners pulled up, and they had a little compressor they could use from their car. They helped me out. And then the Swana dude pulled up when he worked for somebody. He had a big truck with tools and everything. He had a lug wrench and a jack, and we got it going. But the rim, the rim was bent, major bent. So he's like, we can fix this. I'm like, brother, you got more faith than I got. So he says, we can fix this. So we, he said, beating it with a hammer. The guy from the Indian guy, beating with a hammer. And then he takes me to a petrol station on the other side of the road on the end. And we go over there and we fill it up, and he beats it a little bit more. I rode 4,000 kilometers on that damaged rim. He
No.
fixed.
Yeah.
It was
Wow.
my rainbow rescue. And
Yeah.
he had a Tawana and an offer.
My
That's my rainbow rescue.
Hey, Colonel Chris Wyatt has some character, yo. Nah? Yeah, man. You know what? If I was blonde, blue-eyed, an American dude, I would love this type of man. A military man represents some kind of masculinity that a lot of young men lack. And I love old men. I am aspiring now to become an old man. I'm just embracing where I'm going. I'm turning away from youth and where I've been and how young I hope to be. I'm just looking forward to looking like an old man, and I'm taking tips. I'm seeing what it's like to be lovable at that age, you know? And I can see quite a lot of that in Colonel Chris Wyatt. He's a funny dude, but there are men who have a cover, if I may remind you. You see, you need to discern the spirit of a man. You need to understand what spirit operates him. He's funny, we're laughing, he's got dope anecdotes. He's like Ike Kumalo. I understand why people would like Ike Kumalo. He gives this nostalgia, you know. You have memories of a time which you weren't here. When you're listening to him as a young dude, you can imagine Soweto being a particular way back then when there was some kind of order because people were under serious policing and serious control of movement. And that brought some kind of order that is admirable. And listening to times gone by, if you're growing up in chaos and somebody's telling you, bro, there used to be order, when women these days are busy singing my pussy, my pussy, my pussy, and there's music back then. A Grotman is telling you about every woman, every man, join the caravan of love. Stand up, stand up, stand up. You understand? Maybe this is the last time I may ever get to hold your hand again. I can say that I'm a better man because you made me understand. I'm so sorry that I tore your heart apart last night. So there was a time when men had virtue and they could apologize, and they sang lovingly and promoted love and marriage amongst each other. When you hear about times gone by, you'd love those men and their stories. But old men, if they don't grow in Christ, in the Lord, they just grow to become depraved. I'm telling you. They become wizards, or they become men who, over time, lose the value of a person's life when they see people dropping like flies, dying throughout the ages, and you're still remaining. And you can see that, hey man, you're remaining. It seems like you'll die when your time has come, when you're aging nicely in comfort and you see people die in poverty. You start to have the pride of life. You cry for dead people until you're tired, till you don't even care anymore, man, who dies. And we live in a culture where there's spiritual practices that acknowledge death as something very necessary, because death and the spillage of blood activates. Blood dripping is a catalyst for spiritual manifestations. And the practices that people do, they need death. And so people start to view death as they grow older as an essential ingredient. You'll hear the first thing that occultists tell you is that, hey man, there's a yin, there's a yang, there's dark and there's light, there's evil and there's good. And they'll say this is a balance. Evil is necessary. And those are the theories of old men. They become magicians, sorcerers, or people who just don't value life because they've been on this planet long enough to see that, that nigga croaked. We buried him. Now we're still drinking, still fucking. So, yo, who is Colonel Chris Wyatt? Who has he grown up as? Who is he internally? He's funny. He's admirable. He's an old man. Old men are like that. But Israel is out here. His personality and his attitude towards South Africa is one that is not nice. South Africa is a place ravaged by inequality that was created and built to last. Apartheid was designed in such a way that even if you uproot the system, it has long-lasting consequences. First, you suffer the dog as it passes, and then there's this long tail of the dog after the dog has passed. Still suffer the tail after that. And murders, killings, violence, grape. When it grips such a society, it requires an old man who has seen things progressively happen to know why they're here. History doesn't just start at some point, doesn't start in 1994 going forward. There was a longer ruler before that. And so Colonel Chris Wyatt is a man who says that the Amerikaners are in a safe place. At least they're not going to have their necks slit while they sleep, etc., etc., etc. He says all of these kind of things. So South Africa is in this state. People are doing this because they're just savages, according to him. And in America is the land of the free, home of the brave, home of white people, the land of foreigners, the land of diversity, with Los Angeles, California being the most diverse, and the diversity of that area making that state, that province, to be what it is, to be the powerhouse that it is. It's the mixture of everyone there. And I think New York is benefiting from that as well, that diversity. States that are just white don't really get to produce technological new ideas. That happens in Silicon Valley, where you've got diversity and even that homosexuality there. Where people are conservative and just among themselves, you get inbreds, you get stupidity, you get regress, you get stagnation. And so Colonel Chris Wyatt knows all of these things. He knows all of these things, but he has this bad attitude towards South Africa and the black person or the person of color. He stands for the white one, represents them most. So who is he? Let's keep listening.
Yeah. So that was my first trip back, but I come back every 6 months. But when I first came, I was like, I'm going to do meet and greets because a lot of my viewers have been asking me to come to South Africa since 2020 because I couldn't come because of lockdown. So they said, now I'm coming. Let's do a meet and greet. I said, okay, but is anybody going to come? It's like, if the tree falls in the forest, did it really fall, right? Anyway, so I didn't know what to expect. And Ronaldo and others, a lot of my viewers said, Chris, you don't understand. During lockdown, you really went out of your way to try to uplift people and keep them going. Even though I reported the bad news stories, also talked about the macadamia nut industry in South Africa, which is the world's biggest exporter now.
Yeah,
that's
macadamia nuts. Yeah,
and
I always talk about it, and I always encourage entrepreneurs to get into it.
Oh, you know about that?
Yeah, macadamia nuts.
Yeah, it's awesome.
No, I know.
We haven't had that conversation.
No, well, I mean, we've got a macadamia nut farm.
Oh, do you? Well, that's where I was going with this. The interesting thing about the macadamia nut thing is that it's non-traditional. Yeah. Most of the people entering the business are women or people of color. I don't really care for that term. I'm pink. I'm a person of color. Yeah. But anyway,
well, for South Africa, it's much broader.
Right, so it's non-traditional. It's not the usual people going to farming, and it's been going quite well. So I talked about that. There's a guy who's a panel beater in Pretoria. His name is Dax. And he lives in Joburg now. He beat panels for 18 years, didn't like it, made a living, supported his family, but he was a painter. He wanted to paint. That was his passion. So a couple of years before lockdown, he quit painting. Quit beating panels, and he started painting. He went to fairs and the roadside. And
so, like painting, like arts, not like cards.
No, he got tired of panel beating, so he wanted to actually do artwork. So he started selling his art, and it was tough at first. He's struggling. How am I going to sell this stuff? And he started making money. He was making more money than being a panel beater. He loved his life, and then COVID. No fairs. He couldn't. So I interviewed him. He's still selling his art. He's here in Joburg. He sells it. So I'm going to try to link up with him. But anyway, so I started doing these pod stories. So people come to your meet and greets. And I had meet and greets. I did 17 in 30 days in 6 provinces. It's exhausting. Sure. And the smallest was 7 people. The biggest was 60 up in Pretoria. That was a pretty big one. Nice. So then the second time I came, some fewer people came because my audience hadn't grown and people have already met me. So the bloom is worn off the rose, I guess, a little bit. But still some dedicated people kept coming. I've had meet and greets like in Eisenfontein, nobody showed up. People said,
quickly, let me look at that Israel and its influencers video right quick. Let me play him in the background.
They're going to show up. So this time, wrap this up. This is what I'm getting at. This time, what happened was there's huge pent-up interest in me because it's been a year since I've been back. I came last year to cover the elections. So I got you think Home Affairs is bad? Okay. It took me 7 weeks to get my passport in America. And I got it last minute only because I called and asked for expedited service. It was sitting, typical bureaucrat.
Yeah, here's the video. You see, I've watched it. It's got a red line underneath there. You're going to find out what happens. And let's keep watching if the Afrikaners, the refugees, and the Afrikaners locally are having their attention brought towards the 49ers just so that it can also be diverted towards Israel as well. There's a lot of means that Israel employs. But let's quickly check it out. We'll go back to him.
Israel might be controlling your favorite influencer. Here's how you spot them. When Benjamin Netanyahu came to DC to meet with Trump, most of the attention was focused on their plans for Gaza. What completely flew under the radar is that Benjamin Netanyahu had another meeting where he met with a group of conservative influencers. The group included podcasters Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and Sean Spicer, and writers Bethany Mandel, David Harris Jr., Jessica Krause, Seth Mandel, and Molly Hemingway.
And what did Colonel Chris Wyatt say about the number of meet and greets and interviews that he's had? Let's quickly listen to that right quick.
This is what I'm getting at. This time what happened was there's huge pent-up interest in me because it's been a year since I've been back. I came last year to cover the elections. So I got you think home affairs is bad? Okay. It took me 7 weeks to get my passport in America. And I got it last minute only because I called and asked for expedited service. It was sitting, typical bureaucrats, sitting at somebody's desk for like a month and a half.
He's already said that. And let me not go too far back. You heard him.
Some of the people on this list have several millions of followers, and they were meeting not just with Israel's head of state, but also his diplomatic advisor and the Israeli ambassador to the United States. There are no videos or direct quotes from the meeting because it was conducted under Chatham House rules, which is basically a rule set for meetings in elite circles where the people attending, especially journalists, meet on the basis that nothing said in the meeting can be directly attributed to any individual, and then you can only say what was generally talked about. Some of the topics covered include Iran and anti-Zionist sentiment online. While we don't know for sure everything that was discussed, it's hard to imagine that Netanyahu convened influencers for any other reason than to try to convince them to be propagandists for Israel. So is there any evidence of Israel manipulating online spaces to change public opinion? Yes. In fact, it's a stated position of the Israeli Foreign Ministry. Just 3 days after October 7th, Israel launched an initiative to recruit social media influencers in the United States to defend Israel. A spokesperson said, "Fighting on social networks."
Y'all remember I was asking you what's happening with Summer Sambit and Ike Khumalo. And Julius Malema also pointed to Musi Maimane, saying there's an Israel side. I asked the question, why is Summer Sambit looking like he's an influencer? And Daily Maverick pointed him out as cashing in on APAC, receiving some money, doing some content for cash. YouTube monetization is money on top. So you don't know who you're working with out there. But Thomas Mabasoba, they might be part of something very lucrative for themselves. They might be very selfish people.
Works in influencing international public opinion is critical during wartime. The world 3 days after October 7th, Israel launched an initiative to recruit social media influencers in the United States to defend Israel. A spokesperson said, "Fighting on social networks and influencing international public opinion is critical during wartime. The world must understand that Israel's struggle is one of light against darkness, a life-loving culture versus lowly terrorists." It's obvious why Israel needs propaganda. The only way to have a country based on legalized racial supremacy is through propaganda, like Nazi Germany and Jim Crow apartheid had, that twists the reality of the situation. And Israel actually has its own word for propaganda.
You need propaganda. You need a twisting of the situation.
Which is Hasbara, which translates to explain in Hebrew. In the weeks following October 7th, Israel already had a lot to explain. A number of American influencers got emails offering them $5,000 in brand sponsorships in exchange for doing a single live stream supporting Israel. The email read, "I'm reaching out to you on behalf of a global collective of agencies, influencers, and content creators who are coming together to raise awareness about the difficult situation in Israel. As you're aware, the people of Israel are currently fighting not just a war against Hamas terrorism at home, but also in the battle to tell the story to the world." There's no telling who organized this collective of agencies or who they were, but it's clear that recruiting influencers is one of the central chosen tactics of the Israeli Hasbara machine. The reason influencers are so important is because influencer-based marketing is much more subtle than an ad in a fixed programming slot where you know you're being sold something. A lot of this work is done by a network of privately funded NGOs. This is because if you have the Israeli government paying influencers, that looks bad. But if the Israeli government gets 100 different NGOs to do the same thing, it gives the illusion that it's not coordinated by a state.
Yeah.
Take Yalla Israel, for example, a non-profit organization dedicated to flying VIP influencers, meaning people with 3 million or more online followers, out to Israel on an all-expenses-paid vacation where they go swimming and dancing and shopping and out to restaurants. Many of the people that go on this trip don't know anything about Israel and have never posted about it. They're being taken under the guise of discovering Israel, which might sound innocuous, but the way the trips work is that you're being showered with these gifts and fancy dinners and beach trips without any mention of how the Palestinians are treated, and then the organizers tell you about how there are these people out there called Palestinians who hate Jews and want to destroy Israel and all the wonderful things you're experiencing on this trip so far. Then the organizers coach you on how to post about Israel and how to deal with the anti-Semites, meaning people who oppose genocide, in the comments.
Anti-Semites, people who oppose the genocide, so people who are against Israel doing what it's doing, those are people who should get blasted. Colonel Chris Wyatt's recent video is one where he says the NC's mum silent on Israel and Iran bombing one another. He wants to see people take a side in that. He wants to see South Africa openly stand and support Iran fighting back and launching missiles and drones into Israel. And as the South African government does that, I'm thinking that the Amerikaners will be pulled further in the other direction, towards the right. While those who are pro-black, standing with Muslims together, BEE, go off to the other side, and it's a more divided world. Do you see what is happening? Those who speak their honest opinion have to be shot down. There should be no resistance to what is happening to the people of Gaza. So South Africa, trying to resist that, is now under attack. Do you see what's going on?
Yalla Israel closely monitors how much their influencers coach you on how to post about Israel and how to deal with the anti-Semites, meaning people who oppose genocide, in the comments. Yalla Israel closely monitors how much their influencers post, and they report that the average person that takes one of their trips makes 100 posts about Israel while they're on the trip. Even though the group is an ostensibly small non-government organization, the trips are funded by the Zionist mega-donor group, the Adelson Family Foundation, and the director of the group itself is an American-born woman named Sarah Granoff, who formerly served as an IDF spokeswoman and speechwriter for Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon. There are several other nearly identical organizations like Vibe Israel, BZ Media, Sharaka, which focuses specifically on bringing delegations from Arab and Muslim countries, Is Really Cool, which tries to highlight the stories of converted anti-Semites, Hasbara Fellowships, which targets students, and so on. Major Zionist organizations like the Jewish National Fund, Stand With Us, and the American Jewish Committee have also started their own influencer programs.
Yeah.
The Israeli government is also just hiring PR firms that do influencer-based marketing to do marketing for Israel. Here's a Spanish firm with no ostensible pro-Israel bias that was hired by the Israeli Ministry of Tourism to bring two gay influencers to Tel Aviv to, quote, present Israel as a gay-friendly destination, focusing on the Tel Aviv Gay Pride Parade, one of the world's most important gay-themed festivals. Here's another PR firm that
With that, do you realize that Israel is circular? For you who think that Israel is a holy place, if you're reading historic biblical Israel as the current state of Israel, and you're currently looking at that place and what it's doing and trying to find biblical significance and justification by the Bible, you become a white Christian fundamentalist. If you're black and you join that, you become a Zionist. You understand what I'm saying? You need to understand Zionism. So none of this is biblical. Gays and putting together an influencer campaign, it's just the same way that you can say the Roman Catholic Church is not Christian. You can see by the support for gays by Pope John Paul, the one who just recently died, you know, etc., etc.
pays influencers to post pre-written messages with Israeli talking points. One of the biggest targets for Israel is Christian evangelicals.
Woo!
Influencer trips for evangelical influencers have skyrocketed and have been organized by groups like the Maccabee Task Force. Israel sees evangelicals not only as an important demographic for shoring up support in America, but also for giving the illusion that Israel's land theft has some kind of biblical history to it. An article in the Israeli newspaper Haaretz written about some of the groups involved in these Christian.
So you see, those people who are calling themselves Christian as well are being pulled towards support for Israel and away from the other Muslim world. You see, the world is being divided along that line. United States, Israel and its allies this side. Everybody who stands with Saudi Arabia, China, Russia, and whatever, Habrukha, that side. So there's the two superpowers. There's a consolidation on this side and a consolidation on that side. America will not make it on its own going forward. Israel won't make it on its own. And so the bloc on the West needs to form a much tighter group. And they need to campaign those who have this religiosity mindset. Maybe that's how Patrice Motsepe is also coming in. Being close to both ZCC and whatever, his colors, sundowns, ki yellow and green yele ya Moloch. People who have a religiosity nyana, come towards Motsepe as president. If you're into soccer, come to him as president. If you are Judeo-Christian, Arieng, close to Netanyahu and Trump. Let's support genocide and let's bomb together. That's what's happening to the world. And the Afrikaners are right in the middle of this.
Christian influencer trips featured quotes from American pastors saying that Jewish people were chosen by God and that Palestine was promised to them. Groups like Israel 365 Media do this on the domestic front, paying Christian influencers to tell their audiences that Christians have a biblical mandate to support Israel. They work with media outlets like TBN, the world's largest Christian TV network, and
Lord.
Prager University, a major conservative online media outlet followed by many Christian Americans. One thing worth noting in regards to the scope.
PragerU, I think that is Dennis Prager, the man sitting there. He's the one who was employing or contracting Candace Owens before she went to the Daily Wire. She was on a certain platform, had a mug, PragerU, over there, standing for Israel, standing for, Christian values, technical Christianity, but not a Christianity in practice, by the way. And so we see Candace Owens now having left the Daily Wire and that conservatism that aligns with Israel. We see her now aligning with the Roman Catholic Church. Lost, Nje. Wondering about.
The scope of this effort is that all students that go through the Israeli school system are required to take a course on Hasbara in combating criticism of Israel online. The Israeli Foreign Ministry is also training influencers to defend Israel online. These influencers, who collectively have tens of millions of followers, are invited to special training camps where they're coached on how to rebut pro-Palestine talking points and get a direct line of contact to the Israeli government on a constant and emergency basis.
Wow.
But the most egregious part of Israel's online strategy is its use of fake bot accounts that spam pro-Israel comments and posts online. An investigation by the Al Jazeera Media Institute revealed hundreds of accounts created shortly after October 7th with around 50 to 100 followers pretending to be Arabs and constantly posting comments criticizing the Palestinians, regional resistance groups, and Iran. These accounts would mainly target pages.
So Iran, if you stand with Iran, if you are Nalendi Pando, there's a post that I saw that showed a bunch of, a group of Iranian leaders who have been killed by the strikes. And somebody said, Nalendi Pando's friends have all been killed, And that's a South African account. So we are now seeing black or blackface South African accounts that are standing with Israel and stepping on the balls of the ANC and the Naledi Pandos who took Israel to the ICJ. You can see pro-Israelism quite clearly out in the United States. But here in South Africa, it's just slowly starting to show up, and you're starting to see it on Twitter. As the bombs drop, if you're scrolling through Twitter, you can already see some people in South Africa who are taking this side, and you have to take this side, or those who are going that way, and you have to kind of go that way. So you can't be a neutral South African scrolling through Twitter. You have to be black in Soweto, struggling. You're still waiting for service delivery. you're without electricity, you're without toilets, you're without a job, but take a side on Israel. Some of you don't even have a side about who runs your municipality. You don't vote nationally, locally, or whatsoever. You don't care. You're fed up because there's some that's not being delivered to you that matters to you directly. But the help of Twitter and influencers, you will have a side on Israel versus the people who are suffering the genocide. You will take a side on Iran versus Israel. It's happening.
That were popular in the Arab and Muslim world, like Al Jazeera and TRT. Their comments would mainly blame the Palestinians for the destruction they're facing and portray them as beggars who were ungrateful for the aid they were getting from other Arab countries.
Have you not seen Colonel Chris Wyatt label South Africans as these people who have been dependent on US aid, who cannot do for themselves? Have you not seen kind of the same from Douglas Murray? Have you not seen these people who are belittling, casting a certain image? Like they're killing you spiritually, you know? They're killing you emotionally, you know? They are pressing down your personhood. That, ladies and gentlemen, what apartheid was, what ethnic supremacy feels like and smells like. If you don't know about the Nazi propagandist, there was a man who was responsible for turning the minds of the Germans to hate the Jews at the time. And so those techniques, although hated, although famed for the wrong reasons, are being adopted once again. When people are about to get attacked, when they are about to get invaded, when they are about to be hurt in a major way, when their minds are about to be poisoned, there's a singing of a song like the trumpets of death that are sung about you. You're made out to be like rats. I saw Katlego in one of her videos engage in something like that. Black people are being referred to as rats, vermin, people who are begging. That comes before now what happens in Gaza is happening. There's something about that happening to people here being called vermin. And the only way to get out of that is to join the side of Israel and call others vermin. So now you also see these black content creators who are trying to duck from the rain, who are trying to get out of the crosshairs, and they have to now get behind the gun. The one in the back of the gun lives forever.
These accounts would also start dialogues with each other, where one fake account would post a comment and another fake account would respond, which indicates that they aren't individual accounts, but that they're part of an organized effort. No one took responsibility for this, but Israel has admitted to using bot farms in the past.
If you don't know what I was trying to do there, I was quoting Kendrick. He says the one in front of the gun lives forever. So I said the one in suddenly the back of the gun.
During Israel's massacre against Gaza in 2021, the Israeli army used bots to promote a hashtag, Gaza Regrets, to try to rally support for Israel's war. And while the military admitted it was using fake accounts and even apologized for it, the Israeli government continues to employ people to defend Israel online and pledge to target teenagers in its next online campaign. While this video doesn't cover the full extent of Israel's manipulation online, much of which we have to assume has yet to be uncovered, we hope that this helps you know what signs to look for. The Trump administration and the Israel lobby have launched a concerted effort outlined in the Heritage Foundation's Project Esther proposal to smear the Palestine movement as an inorganic movement that's being propped up by foreign actors. But it's actually Israel that's carrying out the real foreign influence campaign to try to run cover for its genocide. This year, Israel has increased its propaganda budget 20-fold to a whopping $150 million. That money's all going somewhere, meaning we're likely going to see more pro-Israel bot comments and more covertly paid influencer messaging coming from the pro-Israel side. Israel's trying to confuse online audiences by flooding their timelines with paid propaganda, but that's unlikely to change much. Israel's genocide in Gaza has led to an unprecedented decline in public.
Ladies and gentlemen, in order to block these kind of things, certain countries will have to block off Twitter. You have to block off Twitter, number one. You have to ban it so that the sickness doesn't spread. And then those who show up on YouTube will have to be quite passionate, because YouTube is not so easy to create a little post where you're swimming or shopping in Tel Aviv and you just say Viva la Israel. On YouTube, you're going to have to write a script or read a script like Summer Sambit, and there it becomes clear what you're doing. But there on Twitter, it's not so clear. And on Instagram, I don't think we'll be influenced that much. Instagram is very influential in the United States, and people can do influencer campaigns of that type. Here, you kind of need Twitter and YouTube, or even TikTok. So we'll see.
Like opinion towards the country, and some polls show that it's now the most hated country in the world. Spamming people with canned talking points and sponsored content isn't gonna change that.
You heard that? You heard that? So, as Colonel Chris Wyatt's account grows, as his popularity increases, and as his agenda grows more hated, what is he going to say? What is he going to say?
So I got it like 3 days before I had to fly because the election was May 29th.
Jeez.
So I got my ticket. Cost me 65,000 Rand round trip for economy, jamming these legs in the seats. Anyway, So I got here. I went to 14 polling stations in the Western Cape because I got here the night before.
So that's during the elections, right?
During the elections.
Yeah, that's a $3,500 trip. That's a ridiculous amount of money.
3,200. Yeah, roughly. Yeah. 65,000 Rand. Yeah. It's pretty good math. You're really good.
Well, I travel between the US and here a lot, so I do
so
the calculation
that's
a lot.
expensive.
Yeah. Very
My
expensive.
first ticket back in 2022 was $868. That's all right.
Yeah.
But now it keeps going up. So I went to 14 polling stations in the Western Cape. I started out in Somerset West. Then I went to Khayelitsha. 5 polling stations, Khayelitsha.
Yeah.
Then I went to Monenberg. And from Monenberg, I went to Rondebosch and then Sea Point and then Parklands and then Tableview. I did all the stuff and observed it. It was pretty wild because people recognized me. It was pitch dark at Parklands, no power because ESCOM, was load shedding. It wasn't supposed to be, there's no power. And people like, pitch dark, hey, it's a...
Yeah, was that a cover? Him doing all of these things. Was that pre-preparation? When you paint a car, you prime it first, give the paint a foundation to properly sit on, creating the pre-existing conditions so that you will be meeting all of that sometime further in the future.
Colonel, because the beard's kind of a trademark. Kind of like your look is trademark.
Yeah.
So anyway, couple of trips in, I started counting how many people would recognize me on the street, just come up to me. Some people are shy. They don't want to say. But a lot of people, hey, it's Chris, it's a Colonel, and they want to do selfies, which is kind of cool. So the last trip, it was 45 people. This time, before I left the Western Cape, it was 52 people. I'm up to 74 people now recognized me on the street.
Wow.
And when I was in Durban, I kind of hid my hotel for a couple of days because I was making content.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even out and about, but still.
Oh, okay.
And by the way,
where did you stay? Where did you stay in Durban?
At the Sun Coast. Yeah.
Sun Coast. Oh, yeah, that's right in town. Oh, have you ever been up to the penthouse there at the Sun Coast?
No, Ramaphosa and I don't move in the same circle.
Well, I mean, it's not really that expensive. Next time you go there, I'd suggest you go book. If you've got some extra money to spend on just a nicer trip, book a couple of days at that penthouse because it's got amazing views of the entire city. I mean, you've got the whole panoramic views. You can watch... I
can film some good content too.
As well. You can see the boats coming into the port there at the Durban Harbour as well. You can see all the way. You can see the Moses Mabhida Stadium because, I mean, it's right across.
They're doing some work on that now. They had a bunch of scaffolding. I kind of ruined photographs for this trip, but I got plenty of photos of the stadium.
Yeah.
Because I go to Sharks games. I'm a huge rugby guy. I do play-by-play and color commentary, and I'm
a Sharks supporter.
Sharks.
He's a rugby guy. So, your Afrikaners, love him. And where he leads you, go. If it's Israel, hooray.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
Were you abused a lot as a child?
By the Sharks, yes.
By the Sharks?
Yeah, I mean, the most abusive was when Brian Habana scored a try in the Super 12 final.
That's a while ago.
That was. The Sharks. We'd been the only Super Rugby champions in South Africa since 1995, when I was just a wee pup at 5 years old, and that was our second opportunity to win that. And then the Bulls stole it right at the death. And they scored a try. It was a knock-on. It was actually. I'm still hurt about it.
Oh my goodness! Still bumhurt about something happened like 15, 20 years ago.
So you're doing a meet and greet after this?
I am.
How many people are you doing in Joburg today?
I don't know, but I can tell you this. We had one at Thundergun on Sunday after I got up here in Northcliffe.
Yeah.
125 people.
Sure.
Wow.
The biggest one was in Strand. When I arrived in South Africa, so a lot of people have been rubbishing me online and making threats. I received death threats and all kinds of things. I don't know why.
He does all the time.
But he kind of pushes the needle. I don't think I push the needle, but not that that's acceptable. No one should make death threats. I didn't threaten you. I just said, dude, what are you saying? Anyway, but seriously, a lot of people were making all these comments about we're going to keep you from coming back to South Africa. I'm like, why? I didn't do anything wrong. I respect the laws of this country and I promote South Africans. So what's the problem? So I just, I got tired of hearing that. So I said, I'm never coming back. South Africa's a failed state. I'm never coming back. That's what I said.
Oh yeah.
To people back off. And then I flew here. And I went down to Gordons Bay. And then on Sunday evening, after I got here, I went live. And people were like, you're in Gordons Bay? Yeah. And then Sunday, the word got out and spread like wildfire.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a strong meet and greet 2 days later. We had almost no time preparing at the Kapstadt Brau House because I love German beer. And my hosts were driving so I could drink because I don't drink and drive. Anyway, so we went there and I got down the street. Now, last year, this is what was telling the whole story about the meet and greets and all the history there. So it all does tie together. So I went last year, we had 6 people at Strand. That's fine. I mean, if it's just me, I'll eat dinner. I'll have, enjoy myself. If people come, I'll chat with them.
Yeah, I mean, Strand is not really that packed. I mean, I like to go to Strand because the beaches are like almost always empty. Gordons Bay is right across,
it's lovely.
You can go on nice boat trips as well. The water's nice and clear. So it's not really a place where you expect lots of people. So how did you end up putting a crowd there?
Well, so we had people came from all over the Cape Town area. I mean, people came all the way from Parklands. I had somebody who drove down from Peekatburg to come to that meet and greet.
Wow.
That's a long trip.
Yeah.
So I walked up with my host and there's like 30, remember I said 6 people last year, 30 people in the street waiting for me. And they wanted me to do autographs and take selfies. It's really humbling. It's really cool. And then finally, one of the guys I know who helped set up the meet and greet came down and said, Chris, the Oaks are waiting. Well, the Oaks are like former military guys. So I figured I'd go up there, right? I walk upstairs, there's 120 people in the restaurant, and they start applauding and cheering. I'm like, so I turned around jokingly and looked at the guy behind me. I said, hey, look, this is all for you. Anyway, but 150, that's the biggest.
Wow.
I've had 740 people plus at my meet and greets thus far all over the country.
That's beautiful, bro.
Yeah.
And that shows you the power of the internet, right? Well, I'm saying the same thing to Nota. Like how YouTube has become so big. I visited him. At some point, he was staying in New York for like the entire year, 2022?
Yeah, 2023. Yeah.
I did a tour. So I'm a DJ. I used to do a lot of gigs back in the day. I haven't been releasing music in quite some time. So I haven't toured in quite some time, but I got a booking to do 13 shows around the US in 2022. Visited him in New York. A lot of the people, wherever I went to, the shows that I was doing, they kept on asking me about him. And it wasn't only just South Africans. And then in my mind, I'm like, wow, that's how big YouTube is now.
It is. It's crazy.
That's how big it has become.
It really has become that big. It's amazing.
To make the world small, right?
Well, it really can. But, the problem with the internet is garbage in, garbage out, too. So people spread nonsense on the internet. So you got to be cognizant of that. So what I always tell my viewers is, you don't have to believe me. I show you the receipts.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of nonsense with the President Trump's refugee offer to offer Congress right now. A lot of misnomers, a lot of fake media, especially by the traditional media here in South Africa. But a lot also Karens running around saying this, that, and the other. And I tell people where I get my information from. It's right there in the executive order. It's right there on the embassy's website. It's right there in the law, Immigration Nationality Act. So I it's the same with my analysis. I tell people where I get my facts from. You don't have to believe me, but again, I'm not some dude sitting around eating chips, and drinking Energate on my couch that's never done anything.
Drinking Mofire on your couch. That's the fastest growing drink in this country. Tell them about Mofire. By the way, we've got a gift for you.
Should we do it now?
Oh yeah, when you open it, it prays for you.
Okay, here we go. All right, so I had like
when
some kind
open
of
it says.
I had some kind of like lemon flavor out there.
Yeah, so Colonel Chris was saying that he's not just some average guy, he knows some things. I wanted to hear a bit of that, but we're having a gifting moment. And congratulations to me, man. I've just crossed 5 straight hours recording this. So this is the longest I've ever done this since the beginning. So if you don't know, if you're watching this video by itself, you don't know that I started 5 hours ago playing this one first, then quarter followed by this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. Then went on to the other page, and now we are here on this last video. And before this video, we had played 3 others about Floyd, and we had seen Ronaldo House. So as I upload this, maybe I will have the long recording and then accompanied by these smaller bits and pieces. So I can stretch the monetization as much as possible. I need it, yo. I need it. This is it.
There, and I was like, no. The lady across the table from me, I said, you got that red berry bomb. I got to try this. So here we go. Now, people have been needling me for days about make sure you drink his energy drink. I'm like, okay, here we go. All right, hold your breath. Damn, that's good, man. That's good.
The Colonel loves it.
Good. So hold on. How do you drink it without getting it on your beard?
Well,
I struggle with that.
It's funny you should mention that because here's another quick story.
I'm new to having a beard. Sorry.
So I don't really like the beard that much.
Welcome.
What?
Because it made me look old, man. I mean, without the beard, my hair is short. I look a lot young. I'm in my 60s now, man.
There's no younger women coming to say hi.
So
give it to me. Give it to me.
Vanity is creepy. Yeah, you could use some help there.
Please,
there's definitely some.
I mean, I've got a talcum beard.
Yeah, That's good. That's good. No, but the beard became a trademark. People recognize it all over. Now people are selling patches through Temu in China with my image on it.
Are you serious?
My goodness.
Yeah, saying don't mess around with old men from dangerous professions. Because I'm a soldier.
Masichaba Lekalake.
Yeah.
Oh, she used to be Lekalake. I don't know what her
Drove.
Oh,
no, she's no longer Drove. I forgot.
Yes, but
Our sister
her maiden name
we
was
did an
Lekalake.
episode with her. Check it out, guys. I think it's like 40 episodes ago.
So every salon in Uganda has her face, her haircut.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you're like that now.
Well, but
Except in Japan.
no, in China.
Oh, in China.
Temu's selling it.
Oh,
Not in
Temu.
America, though. Team is not selling in America. Well, they are, but they're selling only from locally sourced stuff now because of the tariffs. But yeah, no, it's lekker. It's lekker.
You like it?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Thank you. I've got 2 questions for you, and then I'd like to sort of excuse myself.
Okay.
I'd like for you to go toe-to-toe with Nota and have a call for the next 30 minutes or so.
Okay.
Before we finish the episode. But 2 questions before I leave. We had Mzake's kitchen lunch. I want to know your honest opinion about the food.
The food was outstanding.
He loves the food.
And we had it outside.
And I had just eaten before I came, so I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah.
Because I ate the food anyway.
Nice. Before I shift, my next question would be, which will be pretty much my last. You've been to South Africa many times. You've visited here many times.
Yes.
Over the past year since President Trump presidency, there's also been a lot of what we call in South Africa misinformation about our country out there.
Sure.
About a white genocide and a whole lot of other things that we feel are untrue about South Africa. When Rob was here, we asked him about it. We want to hear your opinion about the white genocide that's happening in South Africa. Is there a white genocide here? And how do you see it from an American who's not from here?
Well, as an Africanist, somebody that's lived all over Africa and traveled, I've told you, we talked earlier, I lived in Tunisia, Liberia, Botswana, Malawi, Nigeria, Mauritania, Uganda, and Ethiopia. And a postgraduate work in Africa. Like my first postgraduate thesis was on the housing subsidy program back in 1995 that the ANC was going to create for RDP houses.
For RDP, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first handed. So from that standpoint, okay, first off.
So his post-grad thesis was based on that. That's very interesting. Let's quickly jump back 2 more times and listen to what he said about that. His postgrad, meaning when he was a young man, he knew about the ANC. So Colonel Chris Wyatt knows about the plight of this country, but he seems to just be happy with the state that it's in, or happy to rubbish it, you see, happy to see it dependent on US aid, shaming, belittling people who are part of this mess, who are victims of this mess, and defending the white ones and giving them an express lane out of the trouble. So he knows this country, he knows what's been done to it, but he doesn't seem to give much of a damn. He's not sympathetic.
In Uganda and Ethiopia, and a postgraduate work in Africa. Like my first postgraduate thesis was on the housing subsidy program back in 1995 that the ANC was going to create for RDP houses.
For RDP, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first handed. So from that standpoint, okay, first off, I want to be clear about something here, and that's I've never been comfortable with what I consider leftist, and I'm going to say that frankly, leftists and the media have been portraying as a white genocide. Most of the time I hear that term, it's coming from News 24, IOL, or people on the political left, white leftists in particular.
Where did it originate from? They created it. Is that what Colonel Chris Wyatt is trying to claim at this point? Have you seen people suddenly back away from the white genocide as if they didn't start it, they never spoke about it, they didn't deny it from the beginning? Like, there are people who have loved that narrative, have gone with it, and when Trump said there's bad things, they knew that he's alluding to this white genocide. And I don't know that Colonel Chris Wyatt has been shouting and correcting the wrong and misinformation of a white genocide. He's going around correcting a whole lot of things from people that he says are leftists and the traditional media, and he's now blaming them for that white genocide thing. Let's keep hearing more about what he thinks of a white genocide and who he thinks it comes from. He says it's the left and their misinformation. You see that?
Trying to rubbish the very real situation of rural South Africa where people are at risk, black, white, and brown. I'm one of the few journalists who actually covers every farm murder and every rural assault that I can find information on. And I don't care what skin color they are. I covered the black cattle farmer who was shot in the head in the Free State because they robbed his butchery. He went into the hospital. I don't remember his name, so I apologize for that. It's been 5 years since that happened. But he went into hospital in coma and was in for a couple months, came back, and then died from complications of coma after he got out of the hospital.
Wow.
The Indian woman on the Ayub farm near Venan in KZN, she was 4 months pregnant. 5 and 7-year-old kid or 5 and 3-year-old kid in her bedroom. They took her in the bathroom, slit her throat from neck to neck. And then, of course, you got people like Edward Neumeister and Brendan Horner, and the list goes on. Now, there was another farm attack last night. They shot a woman in the mouth, in the back of the head. So the term genocide, there's levels, legal levels to genocide to define it. But the reality is that since the disbandment of the commandos, there's been a huge uptick in rural violence that affects Black, brown, and white South Africans. My issue is that the media here, if they're Black, they almost never cover the story. If a Black farmer or a Black rural resident is killed or horribly it's almost never in the news. And the same with coloreds and the same with Indians. They sensationalize.
He's just lambasting a certain media and spending time talking about them. Is there a white genocide? Is it there? Give your answer first and then give all of these substantiations, because now we are waiting to hear you. And some of us might even forget what the question was. Is there a white genocide?
The whites. But what's happening to the whites is very real. I wouldn't call it a genocide, but the plague of violent crime in rural South Africa is affecting everyone. And white folks are targeted, not exclusive, they are targeted because the presumption is they have money and guns. And
is it state sanctioned as well, the violence? Because that's the claim. Outside of genocide, you say you wouldn't call it that. I hope you'd be able to call what Israel is doing a genocide, though. I hope you would. But outside of that definition, that term, there's a rumor as well that says this is state sanctioned, meaning that it's part of government policy. As you heard Trump in the Oval Office there with Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa had to make a defense that says, no, this is not part of our policy, etc., etc. Although Liana, he just screwed up the defense of the matter. He should have stood by the Constitution and said that those are people who have the right to sing that. The Constitution of South Africa recognizes that song as a struggle song, not as a song that causes a genocide, and that genocide does not actually exist. If Colonel Chris Wyatt knows better, what is his message to Trump about that misinformation? There's misinformation that Colonel Chris Wyatt is perfectly happy to see go out there, and that is called propaganda. There are lies that are peddled that people are happy with. That's propaganda. And then they'll say others there are propagandists. So he'll say News 24, the leftist media, are reporting on this and not reporting on that. That was Trump in the first administration, bro, was constantly talking about those people there as fake news, fake media. And Colonel Chris Wyatt is just rolling his tongue, saying kind of the same things here. I don't understand this war with the media.
And it's not just simple, revenge killing, stuff like that. That's nonsense. I know farm survivors. I know people personally who've lived through this. It's horrible. Not just white folks that live through this. And the reality is that this is something that the government doesn't, in my view, take seriously. They only want to categorize as an important crime. It is. And then, but there is a genocide here. And then I'll be honest about this, and we can disagree on this, but I don't know if we will, but there is, from my perspective, a cultural genocide of the Afrikaans language. And I find that horrendous. From my perspective, I think there's an effort to stamp out Afrikaans. There really is. But there is a genocide here. And then I'll be categorized as an important crime. It is. And then, but there is a genocide here. And then I'll be honest about this.
There is a genocide here. Is there a genocide in Israel? No. By Israel in Gaza? Is there? We
can disagree on this, but I don't know if we will. But there is, from my...
Well, I'd say there is one. You disagree. I'd say you wouldn't agree, but this is my view.
Perspective, a cultural genocide of the Afrikaans language. And I find that horrendous.
And I think there's an actual genocide in Gaza, not cultural or figurative or metaphoric. The actual ending of human lives. Men, women, children, young and old, indiscriminately.
From my perspective, I think there's an effort to stamp out Afrikaans. There really is. And we see it. I'm not talking about the Bella Bill. That's the latest thing. But to me, I don't understand why all South Africans aren't up in arms. I mean, so I know a little bit about your background. You got Colston, you got Sotho in your background, correct?
Yeah. Well,
not. Is that a state secret?
Ancestral. No.
Okay, it's not a state secret. Okay. So, I mean, if you have kids, I mean, you speak English, but I don't know if that's your first language. Was English your first language?
First language.
Okay, well, then that's probably not the best example. So, what was your first language growing up?
Sepedi.
You remember the Soweto riots? There were students protesting against being forcefully taught a certain language. You understand? And they had to go into workplaces with that language. So was that during that time an attempt to erase black people's languages and their importance and to put and impose Afrikaans on them? And so what is happening today? Afrikaans is at risk where? Afrikaner culture is facing a genocide. How? How though? Let's keep listening for a little bit and then we'll be officially out of here. I'll drop this at 5 hours and 20 minutes. We're 13 minutes, so let's just give this around 7 minutes more.
Okay, super. Okay, all right. So,
Sipedo, you can say Sizulu.
yeah, okay. So you should have the right, because your kids are learning, if you're speaking that language at home, whether it's Afrikaans or it's Xhosa or it's Zulu, whatever it is, your kids are hearing that language at home. They go to school at 5 or 6 for the first time. They shouldn't be forced to be introduced to the class of English that day. That's unfair. Only 6% of South Africans speak English as the first language. 6%.
Yeah.
Whereas, you're one of them. So there's Zulu, Xhosa, and then Afrikaans, the 3 most widely spoken first languages in this country. People should be allowed to speak it. With the Bella bill, I don't understand why people aren't upset. They should be upset. Your kids should be able to speak that language, and then they can learn English at school. But when you put kids into a new environment with a brand new language, you put them on the back foot from the get-go. Those who speak English will have an advantage. Because that's the language you learned at home. It'll be easier for them to adjust. I think it's unfair. It's okay to learn English. I mean, that's my first language. It's great to learn language. And I speak 6 languages, so I have nothing against languages. I'm a polyglot.
Yeah.
That sounds like an infectious disease. Anyway,
No.
But there is a real effort to stamp out Afrikaans and stamp out the history. And I have a friend who has a 9-year-old Afrikaans daughter who came home from school recently and was crying. And he said, "What's wrong?" I don't want to be an Afrikaner anymore because of what she was taught at school. Steve Biko talked about Black consciousness. And he said, you should be comfortable in your skin. There's no reason to be ashamed of who you are. No one should be ashamed of who they are. I didn't choose the skin color. You didn't choose your skin color.
No.
Neither of us chose to be devastating handsome. It just worked out that way.
Thank you for that.
You're also devastating handsome. But my point is that this nonsense needs to stop. It needs to stop. This country is stronger with all its people. That's why I fell in love with South Africa, because of the mix of people, the history. There's bad things that have happened in history on all sides. What happened to the Khoisan San? What happened to the Xhosa in their wars with the Voortrekkers? And what happened to the Voortrekkers when they went north and fought against the Ndebele? And they allied with the Griquas and with the Baralong and the Bakwena and some of the Sotho. But South Africans, by and large, don't know their history. And it's playing a role today where people are acting like fools on all sides. And it frustrates me to no end. So my point with this is that the white genocide thing is something, in my view, that I almost only hear from the news media and political leftists.
And you agree that there is that genocide which you hear from the leftists. Let me repeat you one more time. Colonel Chris Wyatt is confusing to listen to.
For instance, my point with this is that the white genocide thing is something, in my view, that I almost only hear from the news media and political leftists. For instance, AfriForum has been accused of it for many times. Now, I've met with AfriForum. I've talked to them almost this time I don't have time to visit them. I've seen them in the States. I've never once, if they did, I'll stand on correction, but I've never once seen them publish anything that talked about a white genocide. So maybe I missed it. But they get accused of that. And Daily Maverick just had to apologize for that because they lied.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the biggest challenge with AfriForum is not about them saying that there's a white genocide. It's about them not denouncing it.
Denouncing what?
Like
the term white genocide.
The term that there's a white genocide, because
disassociating from it. Maybe they should do that. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I think they should condemn it because what it masks over, like you explained fully, is that there's a lot of violence in rural South Africa because it's under-policed.
Indeed.
And there's also a lot of urbanization happening.
Which also tends to contribute to crime because you have new mores and new values and different peoples coming together, and you don't have a homogenous community.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, I think AfriForum has missed out on an opportunity to get their message across to the South Africans that are concerned. Because just as much as, a lot of white South Africans are concerned about the violent crime, and also the fact that a lot of them were told that once we come into this democratic dispensation, there might be, some black people who want vengeance or want to punish white people for their perceived privilege. AfriForum, in standing up for minority rights, hasn't really done the work to show that the group that they stand for isn't just a racial group. especially when it comes to protecting the language of Afrikaans, which is mostly spoken by non-white South Africans.
Right, coloreds are the biggest group of
Yeah.
speakers.
So, they haven't made an effort that I've been able to see, to recognize, to say, we're in the defense of Afrikaans as a language of people, not as a language of white South Africans.
I don't see it as language of white South Africans.
Yeah,
I see it as a South African language.
That's
definitely it's the world's newest language.
So,
except for maybe COBOL for coding.
Yeah. So in the way you explain it, it's slightly different from what we see coming from AfriForum and what they've been doing. So there's concern on both sides, and there's mistrust generally between Black South Africans and white South Africans. Whereas with white South Africans coming into this new democratic dispensation, there was an effort to say, listen, not all white South Africans are responsible for the injustices.
In fact, very few are responsible for it.
But by the
But some were.
Look, I don't want to put it like that, because I mean, I could also say the same thing about Germans, under Hitler's regime, and how many of them actually were part of the evil because they wanted to be part of it, or because they felt, they'd be under threat had they opposed the regime. So I like to give all people the benefit of the doubt where that is concerned. I don't expect a white person, just because their surname is Botha, to have the same level of guilt as someone who's related directly to P.W. Botha. You know what I mean? So to speak. So with this mistrust that's happening, it's very difficult for us to build relations, when we're not letting our guard down, where we're all looking for the first offense that confirms why we should be mistrusting of one another. And I feel that the effort to bring us together as a national community, not just, our ethnicities and our tribal identities, hasn't really been supported on the ground. It's been very much top down instead of bottom up, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of public policy, there's a lot of government policy that tries to integrate our society better, but there isn't work done within the grassroots in the communities to actually say how we can cohesively build this country as collaborators and not as competitors, trying to get the most out of South Africa. We're not competing for resources as South Africans. We're trying to ensure that our resources are shared by as many people as possible to alleviate the poverty that affects South Africans, whether they be white, black, Indian, colored, or any other ethnicity.
Well, I think Zabu wants to hand me something there, but I do want to respond to that because we'll differ on a few points. But I think you want to give me something.
Yo, I'm stepping away. I'll let DJ Spoo ask the question so you know what directly comes after this, but I won't be playing the response. If you've watched this, I'm quite late to this, but I see that quite a few people watched this episode. Colonel Chris Wyatt is not so popular. He's known by us, me, very much, having noticed him and paid attention to him. I've done probably about 10 videos with his name in the title. So those who have taken an interest in him, who have not seen this episode, who rely on picking up these bits and pieces from me, then this is what's up, this is what happened. But if you've watched it, you know what's going on. I'll be out of here just now.
I'd like for you to respond to that.
Okay.
And as I'm excusing myself, thank you very much, by the way, for making this one. I'm looking forward to the next one when you do come.
Sure.
Let's record another episode. What I want you to not forget as you have the conversation with Nota is the story of the 89-year-old from the Khoi lady.
Yes, in Uppington. Yes, Katerina Esau.
Uppington, sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Please ask him about that story.
Okay, cool.
You mustn't forget to share that story.
I'll share that story.
And
Sure.
this is a thank you from us for coming to the Hustlers Corner. This man is a legend. His name is Mzege Zege.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows who he is in South Africa. Very famous Kwaito musician, whom has just become an urban legend. And this restaurant celebrates his legacy, Mzege's Kitchen. So I'd like to hand you this one to solidify your street cred. So anyone sees you with this, any black person sees you with this, your street cred shoots up the roof.
Well, there you go.
They're going to start asking you questions about Mzege Zege.
Yeah.
So go do your own research. Thank you very much, bro.
Thanks a lot.
You must say, first and
Thank you, bro.
And so, with that, Colonel Chris Wyatt will go and wear that shirt in the townships, and black people will join the Israel campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed this. Whoever has watched this from start to finish, let me know that you have done so, and I'll find a way to give you my phone number, be in a WhatsApp group of people who can help me produce this content, who can help me by sharing some links to stories that I can just hop on. You understand? I'm not pushing any agenda. I just want to grab onto whatever people see as attention worthy, and they know me to speak on that issue. If I'm missing out on it, then we can speak. So if you've watched this all the way to the end, the whole 5 hours of this stuff, when I upload it, it won't be 5 hours. Maybe, yeah, I think with the 24 minutes spillage, removing the silences may make this like 4 hours and about 50 something, just barely making it to the full 5 hours. But if you've watched this full length one, I appreciate it. Otherwise, then you are watching this from this clip of this interview alone. I just want you to know that there's a long form version of this that I record from start to finish, and congratulations to me. This is 5 hours and 24 minutes. I hope that everything technical goes well and the files don't become corrupted as I try to take them into edit. I've never made files this big. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you like, hope you comment, hope you share and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.